Good evening and good afternoon to all the honorable panelists and speakers and everyone who's attending this webinar. Thank you for taking time off and taking part in this session amidst this pandemic. My name is Anand Prabhu Patanjali. I'm the program manager for Power for All in Jharkhand. Today is widely recognized as Earth Day and known for taking significant steps in climate change. Jharkhand is one of the most climate vulnerable states in the country, and transition to clean energy is seen as one of the key steps to take part in climate change mitigation and adaptation. Today's webinar and report launch will focus largely on that front. On this regard, I would like to welcome our honorable keynote speaker, Mr. Vishnu Charan Paridaji. He is a senior development management professional having 25 years in the NGO sector, human development sectors, and government agencies. Presently, he is the COO of the Jharkhand State Livelihood Promotion Society, Department of Rural Development, Jharkhand. He has earlier worked as a deputy CEO as the Department of Social Welfare, Government of Bihar, and as SPO with the UNDP in Jharkhand, and as well as a team leader in Pradhan. He is a gold medalist in his class in his MPhil in Natural Resource Management from the Indian Institute of Forest Management from Bhopal in 2005. He did his Master of Social Work from Vishwa Bharati University, Shantiniketan in 1995. He's completed his EMDP on Senior Leadership Program from the Indian Institute of Management, Kozhikode, and presently is pursuing his PhD in Management from the ICFAI University in Jharkhand. Vishnuji, I welcome you to give the keynote address for this session and on this day or on this eventful Earth Day 2021.
Thank you, Anandji, and respected Professor Johans, Mr. Gaurav, Mr. Harshit, Professor Samadrit, Divya, Varsista, and many other participants to this launching event. And as you told, today is a very special day. Today is World Earth Day. And in this Earth Day, and we're going to launch this roadmap event. And it's the Initiative for Sustainable Energy Policy. And the report ISEP going to launch today is creating a renewable ecosystem roadmap for clean energy and transition in Jharkhand, India. As you already mentioned, although Jharkhand is a very typical state, is a mineral state, but it is quite vulnerable to global warming and this climate change and many pollution and many things. Those who are from Jharkhand, they know well, but if many people are from outside Jharkhand. So let me just highlight a few key points about Jharkhand. So that they will be get acquainted with our state Jharkhand before we move to the launching of this report. Jharkhand is the 28th state of India out of 35 states and UTs, union territories. And it is created in 2020, 2000, not 20 years back. And it is, if you see area-wise, it is the 15th state of among all states of India. And population-wise, it is the 14th states. In 2011, 10 year back, population was 3 crores 30 lakh. Presently, it would be around 4 crores population. And our area-wise, it is area-wise, you can roughly tell 79,710 square kilometer. And other indicator you can tell like population density is 414, then sex ratio is 948, literacy rate is just 66%. But interestingly, it is a tribal state, and more than 26% of population are tribal. There are 32 tribal groups, and there are 12% of population are from the scheduled caste also. So you can add SC/ST population, it will be goes around definitely. So it is the basic data. We can discuss more if somebody interested to know more about the Jharkhand. But today's agenda, as well today's agenda, as I told, Jharkhand is a rich state with poor people. And we are supplying coal, which is producing electricity for other states. Still, the many people, many parts are parts of our state is not covered with sustainable energy. Particularly, I'm talking about the electricity. And as you know, Jharkhand is a hilly state with 29% forest cover. So it is a crisscross with many small streams, undulating terrain. Many areas are hard to reach, even during the summer days. If you consider the rainy days, then the many parts of the Jharkhand are remain cut off. And there are many PVTs, particularly vulnerable tribal groups, who are living in the far away area, forest fringe area, where the electricity has not gone. There may be some MIS data they're putting that electricity has connected to all villages. But in the reality, either 2 to 3 situation, whether there is a non-connection of villages, or there is a disconnected wire just once they connected the wire to the particular village, but after few days or few months there is a disconnection of that wire, or the transformer they put, they are not working now, and the power cut is very erratic. Even for the Ranchi, we are facing 2 to 3 hours of power cut. So you can imagine about the other parts of the Jharkhand. I think there are hardly 78 hours of proper power in rural area. Even there is very difficult in Dhamnad, Bokaro, even in the advanced districts of Jharkhand. So if you tell that the power situation is not so good, despite where the Jharkhand is the 40% of India's mining resource producing state. The coal is the where the major exploiter and exporter of the coal to other states. So energy wise, it's not. I think this data will be Professor Johans will present. So I'm not going to give so much data. And let me speak about the work we are doing. As I Anand told, I am working with Jharkhand State Livelihood Promotion Society. It's a part of Rural Development Department, Government of Jharkhand, and we are implementing lots of livelihood projects. One of the major livelihood project is called National Rural Livelihood Mission, which is now also called Deen Dayal Upadhyay Yojana, DAY NRLM, but it is famously known as National Rural Livelihood Mission. Rural Livelihood Mission. Presently, we are present in all 24 districts, working with all 263 blocks and more than 27,000 villages. Out of 32,000 villages, we are working. Presently, by 31st March 2021, we have formed 2.59 SSG and reaching to more than 32 lakh households. So we have a fair enough presence, and more than 2,800 staffs are in our payroll, more than 50,000 community cadres, the para-professional with us. So we have a good reach, and we have promoted single livelihood with more than 20 lakh families. But I cannot claim that we have done livelihood-wise better in me, but we are progressing as the NRLM started in 2011, and we started in 2012, 13, and it is a gradual program. And every year we are adding family, every year adding livelihoods. So going on to this contest, let me add what we are doing for the sustainable energy in our project. Apart from NRLM, we have many projects through which we are promoting sustainable energy use. One of project is called Johar, which is World Bank funded. And this project having 4 components. One is high value agriculture, NTFE, livestock, and fishery. To augment high value agriculture, we have kept a component called irrigation, and we are promoting irrigation mainly through solar based irrigation. We are promoting small community managed micro irrigation. The scheme is covering 15 to 25 acres of land, covering around average 20 beneficiaries. So till today, in Johar project, we have promoted 515 schemes and covering around, you can roughly tell, 10,000 acres of land and 10,300 families. Apart from this Johar project, which is World Bank funded, there is a project called micro lift irrigation. It is a state government funded project. means it is funded by the budget of Jharkhand government through Department of Rural Development. It is a similar kind of irrigation. We have just 5 to 8 HP machine run by the solar panel, energy getting solar panel. There is no inverter, direct solar assimilation of energy and lifting of water. In that scheme, we have promoted already 404 schemes and benefiting more than 8,000 families. So together, irrigation wise, we can tell that we have covered around 900 plus schemes, sustainable micro irrigation schemes covering 18,000 families. And there is a plan to add 700 more such schemes in Johar project. Johar project is not in all blocks. Johar project is being implemented in 17 districts, 68 blocks. Similar to the lift irrigation project, now is in just 8 blocks. So there is a in NRLM, we have sufficient fund for the training capacity building, but there is no fund available in NRLM for infrastructure support. But there is another project called MKSP, Mahila Kisan Sashaktikarana Parijojana, where we are promoting value chain based livelihood. We are working with tamarind, starting from the collection of tamarind to collectivization, value addition, segregation, block making, and marketing. Similarly, for lemongrass, we are producing lemongrass oil, dried lemongrass for the tea. Similarly, for the tosser. So MKC project is a value chain based NTP project where we have promoted some sustainable use of power. Like we have promoted dryers, solar dryers, mainly for tulsis, for lemongrass. Then for the distillation plant, we are using the residue of the lemongrass for the heating and creating generation of the steam. And there is some area and some in our MKC project we are promoted rice hauler which is running in the solar power. There is some grinder also running with the solar power. And then is another program, another project is now closed. These three projects I mentioned, Johar, state government funded LI and MKs are running, and it will run and will be keep on adding more solar based power to this. But there is a project which closed last year, that is called Soul project. It is a collaborative project of IIT Bombay and the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, where we provided 8 lakh. It is a large amount of large number of solar lamp to the students of government school student of the Jharkhand across I think more than 18 20 districts. And he in that project, the components of the solar lamp, like the solar panel, the bulbs, the batteries, they came from the MNRE in a different in a component wise. Our SAG member assemble them and make them lamp and supply to the student. We just keep a 100 rupees charge giving to the women who assembly that and provided aftercare services. We have set up some few solar shops also during this project. So these are the 3-4 initiatives from our side. But I would like to tell there is some new development you must be knowing. In Lohardaga recently, a young forester has started a briquetting making machine there recently 4 months back. That is not the forest department project, and he's involving our NRLM community members, and with the dry leaves of that area and agri waste, he's preparing briquetting, which is being used as a fuel. So it is a both the environment and economic aspect of the project. Similarly, the project also mentioned in Gumla district, there is a microgrid and private initiative there as a created some microgrid for the local people. So similarly, I just recently reading the Reader's Digest, I came to know about a girl who is innovated a thing that for the ironing of the shirts, people generally use in even in the Jharkhand other states coal or charcoal based ironing. But that girl invented a cart with a solar panel through which this coal and charcoal use won't required. That charge the cart itself is charging the iron. So there are many cases. There is a site called Better India, and if one can visit that, can able to know how this clean energy, sustainable energy, wind power, solar power, biomass based, or the rooftop power is being used in all over the India, and we can take up a few things there. And I just gone through this report very quickly and find very exhaustive, comprehensive, and very details. And I think Professor Joans will present that. I'm not going to do that. In the end, let me tell this team of ISEP as few suggestions, not suggestions, but that is already told in the public policy things. Any public policy or advocacy or public policy recommendation, three components should be there. One is three component means three feasibility. One should be technical feasibility. Anything you are recommending to government, that should be technical feasible. Like in Jharkhand context, we will be proposing those type of technology which can be local people adopt. If we propose that charging of electric vehicle by running over a road like Sweden, it may not be feasible in Jharkhand. So this policy on sustainable renewable ecosystem should be technical feasible, so that a private entrepreneur, a government, other people can easily adapt. Then another component, it should be administrative implementable, because the deputy commissioner, the secretaries, or the government official, they prepare the guideline. The policy became document. Policy there got approved by the cabinet or the chief minister or the assembly. But the implementation part is very difficult. On the basis of policy, if prepare to policy brief, guidelines, instruction, and mobilize the resources, build partnership. So the guidelines in such a that those people working on the administrative field, they should be comprehend, and they should prepare good document for the implementation purpose. That will be operational guideline, operational standard procedure. Then the policy should be politically acceptable, because the public policy we are talking is the making by the our honorable members of assembly or the cabinet or the political system. If there's those people working on the decision making, they are not aligned to this policy, that won't be carry for a longer decision. For example, MGNREGA is started with the government of while in Congress, but it BJP government carry forward it, because that is acceptability at all level, from the community level, from the government level, from the even the political sub level. So I think we need to sensitize these three things to various stakeholders, and I would suggest that we should bring the entrepreneurs, because through government, NGOs, or communities, nothing, not nothing, but much cannot be done unless and until the private funding will come, the entrepreneur will come, innovation will come, they will invest the money. So these things recommended in this report will be implemented. Let me close here. I have think exceeded my time. Lastly, as for the Mahatma Gandhi, he told on the basis of environment, we should think globally but act locally. We should take the learnings of globally, from USA, from Sweden, from Netherlands, but we design the solution, the methodology, the procedure suitable to Jharkhand. Thank you. Thank you very much to all. I remain here. If there is any question, we can take up those questions at the end of this session. Thank you very much, Anand ji. Thank you.
Thank you, Parida ji. Thank you for giving us that insightful summary of the ground reality in the state, and also an overview on the very impressive and innovative projects undertaken by JSLPS. With all the examples you said, now we know that Jharkhand, not only Jharkhand, but the whole country has plenty of innovations, and we are in the right track of inventing new things locally and taking global ideas and implementing it locally. For that, now I would invite Professor Johannes Professor Johannes is Prince Sultan bin Abdul Aziz Professor of Energy, Resources and Environment at Johns Hopkins University of Advanced International Studies. He is also the director of the ERE program and the founding director and for the Initiative of Sustainable Energy Policies, ISEP. He is an award-winning author of over 180 referred articles and 5 books. He advises to the governments, international organizations, civil society groups, and private sector on sustainable energy. He received his PhD in political science from the University of Michigan in 2009 and spent the rest of the 8 years at Columbia University. He is a very, very well-known face in the think tank sector in India, and I don't think he needs so much of introduction from me. Professor Johannes, over to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Vishnuji, for your kind remarks and an overview. And thank you, everybody, for joining, both on the panelists and in the audience. I really appreciate your taking the time, especially given that the COVID-19 situation right now in India is unfortunately quite challenging. So thanks so much for taking the time to discuss these issues with us. Today, I'm going to give you a very brief overview of our report. So let me start my screen share. And I trust everybody should be able to see the slides now. Let me first acknowledge the contributions of the team. So the lead authors of the project are Eklavya Sharan, Jai Shekhar, and Harshit Valecha. We also have extensive contributions from Vagish Anandan, Michael Acklin, Brian Blankenship, and last and least, myself. So what we tried to do in this report is we tried to look at the clean energy future of Jharkhand from a comprehensive perspective, looking at the resources available, the current situation, possible roadblocks, and solutions to addressing these issues. And let me first start by just citing a few facts, building on Vishnuji's broad overview of Jharkhand. So the first one is that we do need to note that Jharkhand is, as a mineral state, still faces significant poverty issues, with approximately 40% of the population below poverty line, as per government of Jharkhand statistics. In our work, when we did a study of the rural energy situation in Jharkhand in 2019, we found that 13% of rural households had no grid electricity at home. This is a number that includes the implementation of the Saubhagya scheme. So we see that there is still a gap between universal electricity access and the reality in the villages. We also see that the transmission and distribution losses over the past 5 years have averaged something like 35%, which is a very high number. And at the same time, the annual electricity consumption is only 600 units per capita, which again is a very low number. So we can see that Jharkhand is still at a fairly kind of early stage of its energy development, which is somewhat paradoxical, because at the same time it is the kind of leading coal center in India. It has extensive industry in, for example, steel. And as a result there, it seems that Jharkhand has done more to supply energy for India than it has to meet the demand of its own population. Some of the reasons why this is challenging in Jharkhand include it's a heavily tribal state, which creates all kinds of complex issues related to land acquisition, land rights, and issues like that. The geography, as we all know, is quite challenging. Jharkhand is it's not a flat state. It has mountains, it has rivers, it has waterfalls. The infrastructure remains weak, and there is still a security issue related to the Naxalite movement. So then the question for Jharkhand really is, given where we are today, what would the future look like in a scenario where coal demand will initially flatten and then at some point may possibly decrease? Now, I do want to be clear here that we do not expect Jharkhand to have kind of an immediate collapse in the demand for coal, because it will take a long time to replace all the coal-fired power generation capacity in India for electricity. And more importantly, Jharkhand does play a significant role in supplying coal for industrial uses as well, where we simply don't have the technology, that we don't know pretty much anywhere in the world how to make steel without coal and all that. So what we are looking at is a gradual transition away from coal. Now, let's look at the specific capacity mix that we have in Jharkhand. And so if we look at the total capacity at the top, we see that is obviously overwhelmingly thermal today. There is some hydro resource, and renewable energy sources are still quite limited. So in the Indian context, most of the renewable energy capacity is in the western states. So it's states like Karnataka, Gujarat, and Rajasthan that are really leading the way, whereas eastern India is where a lot of the coal-fired power generation capacity is. It's pretty evenly split between central, private, and state. Central is the largest sector here. Private and state are approximately even. One interesting pattern here is that a lot of the renewable energy capacity is actually in the state sector. So this is something that's kind of quite unusual compared to some of the other states where the renewable energy sector has been dominated by private players. Now, if we look at next at the capacity and potential, this is some statistics from MNRE, the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. And what we see in Jharkhand really is that while there is some capacity for wind, small, and biomass, there's some potential to develop capacity here. Really, the big capacity opportunity is in solar energy, right? So Jharkhand, for example, has a real potential for solar rooftop, and I'm delighted that we have a representation from SEED today on the panel, because they have done a lot of terrific work on developing the solar rooftop capacity of the state. This is also an area that's of active interest to our group, and we've been working with Professor Samdarshi from Central University of Jharkhand on some of these issues. So again, it's really great to see kind of all these streams of work converging here in Jharkhand. Now, here are some policies that have been passed in Jharkhand. So we have the solar power policy of 2015, energy policy of 2012, we have a mini-grid policy from 2018, power policy of 2018, we have the Johar scheme, which is mentioned by Vishnu Ji, and we have a rooftop policy from 2018. But as we all know, and as Vishnu Ji just reminded us, implementation is key, right? So the Jharkhand policies on in the books are not in any way sort of bad or problematic, but concrete implementation in the field is where the real challenge is going to come. The state's own energy vision includes some key elements that are important to keep in mind as we look at Jharkhand's energy future. The first one is electricity access for all, and here, of course, the good news is that with the Saubhagya scheme's progress, Jharkhand is made very good progress. We've also seen that some of the traditionally underrepresented populations, in particular the scheduled tribe communities, have caught up with others. This is some research that we are currently doing, and we are delighted to see that the Saubhagya scheme has kind of evened the difference. They've reduced the differences between different groups. Stronger transmission network is essential for reducing the cost of transmission, as Jharkhand is a kind of an export hub for electricity in India. Economic growth in a future that should be less dependent on minerals and coal. So diversification, new livelihoods, new industries. The power generation idea remains strong in the state. So Jharkhand does see itself, the state government sees itself as a kind of a leading generator for the future. And then finally, and importantly, is energy sector innovation. This is an area that will be badly needed, both in the private sector, in universities, and in the government sector. So considering all this, what are the challenges that we identified? We've already recognized that there is the issue of unreliable electricity supply. It is improving, but there's still a long way to go there. But if we dig a little deeper and look at what are some of the kind of key gaps in the implementation side, we see first legal, regulatory, and institutional gaps. And so, for example, while we have these different energy policies, the integration of these policies, how they work together, how different departments work together, how departments work with entrepreneurs, remains a significant challenge. And again, here I'm very glad to see Gaurav Bhattacharya from Swanidhi, because their group really has done outstanding work on kind of state level policy integration and engagement. We also have financial, economic, and market gaps. And as one example, I highlight solar irrigation. Jharkhand is a state where the capacity and potential for solar irrigation is very significant because many farmers don't have electrified pumps today. And the groundwater situation is not nearly as bad as, for example, in Punjab or Haryana. But the progress in this area remains quite low because of financial challenges. And then we have technological, infrastructural, and knowledge gaps. Solar rooftop potential remains mostly untapped. It is clearly there, but it has not yet been tapped. The skilled workforce is a key requirement. We need to have a workforce that is able to contribute to the growth of clean energy in Jharkhand. And then the mini-grid policy is a good step forward, but in practice, the integration of the grid system and the mini-grid systems remains partial. So, for example, in the Gumla district, which was mentioned again by Bishnupji, this is an area where you have a lot of mini-grids running in parallel with the grid system, which is obviously inefficient. There should be better integration of these systems. We propose a few solutions under two frameworks. The first one is focusing on the grid and off-grid systems as they are. And the objective here is to identify the gaps and challenges, and then propose interventions that would help address them. It's all on a very high level. You can see some of the more detailed proposals in the roadmap, which I've included the link in the chat window. So please download the PDF and study it if you want to learn more. But let me just highlight some of the key opportunities that we highlighted. So one is the mini-grid policy implementation. And again, I say implementation because there is a reasonably good policy in the books, but turning it into action requires some work. Rooftop solar, similar issue. The regulatory and policy framework is reasonably good, but the implementation is lacking. So these are two kind of opportunities where focusing on implementation is key. We think that grid-connected solar projects have potential. This is always challenging in Jharkhand because of the land issues, but there is untapped potential. And in fact, for example, one really interesting area is repurposing some of the coal sites. So we do have a number of coal mines and plants that are kind of approaching the end of their lifespan and the useful lifespan. So those sites could be turned into solar production quite possibly. And then biomass has a lot of potential because Jharkhand is a forestry state, it's an agricultural state. So a better use of biomass is another opportunity to investigate. The second framework I find personally quite interesting, and this is something where we learned a lot of new things, is how to lead the industry and innovation area. Again, we are trying to identify the gaps in industry and innovation in clean energy and then propose some solutions. The first one is solar hybridization in thermal plants. So again, in the case of Jharkhand, we don't think that there is any kind of easy and quick transition away from coal. It's going to take more time in Jharkhand than in some other states in India. But if you can design these hybrid systems where you start adding solar capacity then to thermal plants, then this is a real opportunity to reduce the carbon footprint and reduce the cost of the energy over time. And this is something we've seen, for example, the National Thermal Power Corporation is increasingly very interested in solar. We've seen Adani, if you look at the Adani stock market price of the traditional Adani power business versus Adani Green has done 10 times better over the past 2-3 years. So there's some real opportunity here, both for entrepreneurs and for the public sector to take action. Renewable energy, we do need to focus on heat, because heat is so important for the industry, and it's something that we haven't done very well yet. So this is one area where I would certainly invite experts like Professor Samdarshi in the universities to pay some attention and make some contributions, because we need new technology here. and Jharkhand would be a natural place to test many of these things. Distributed renewables, we believe they have a lot of potential in a state like Jharkhand, given that there is still over 10% of households without grid electricity. Given the need for productive energy, solar irrigation, we think this area requires more work. Skill development and capacity building, it's a no-brainer. I think we all agree that this is an essential area for Jharkhand. A fiscal relief package, in the case of COVID-19 again, how do you target your spending in a way that contributes to sustainable energy growth? One of the unfortunate things that we are seeing globally right now is that carbon emissions are again growing quite fast, and so far we haven't seen a green recovery. Now, I do think it would be quite unfair to put the burden on climate mitigation on Jharkhand, which is a poor state in a country that has very low per capita emissions overall. But to the extent that we can use kind of public finance in an interest of low interest rates to promote sustainable but also economically productive relief and stimulus, I think that would be a wonderful opportunity. And finally, we do think that now would be a good time to look at some privatization measures. I know that these are challenging for political and social perspectives, but if we look at some of the experiences with franchising distribution, for example, in urban areas, I think there's a real opportunity for efficiency gains there. That needs to be, of course, balanced with the real and legitimate social challenge of poorer households, pricing lifeline tariffs, supply of electricity in the villages, but we still think that Jharkhand should look at kind of a selective, careful strategy of privatizing some of the distribution segment in electricity. And with that, let me conclude. So Jharkhand is an energy state. It should remain one in the future. There's no sort of idea here that Jharkhand would not play a major role in India's energy future. The question is just what kind. The energy scenario in India is changing. We all agree that there's going to be some kind of a transition toward cleaner sources. There is debate on how fast. Is it 5 years, is it 10 years, is it 20 years? But Jharkhand should position itself in India, which is leading the energy transition in many ways. Jharkhand should play a proud and important role. And this requires two things. One is strengthening the power system in a way that really delivers high quality electricity supply, creates jobs, and then on the other hand, innovations in the industry. And this is particularly important if Jharkhand wants to remain kind of a leader in power generation, industrial applications, and livelihoods built around energy supply. And this all requires then an integrated and coordinated approach. This is a kind of a common refrain every time we talk about energy policy. In almost any Indian state, we come to integration and coordination. And I think Jharkhand should really take the lead here and work to improve the connections between the different departments. With that, I'd like to thank everybody again for attending. This is a very kind of special moment for me personally. I look forward to visiting Jharkhand as soon as the COVID-19 situation improves. It's a beautiful state, and I'm confident that the state will do very well in the energy sector. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Johannes. Thanks for that overview of the energy sector in Jharkhand and for highlighting the key findings of the report. As Johannes mentioned, the report is available for download. The link has been posted in the chat box, and I think we'll post it once again for those who just joined. Johannes brought up some interesting points. Jharkhand is an energy state, and that's not going to change. But the question is more about what kind of energy state is it going to be, and it requires strengthening the existing power system and also encouraging innovation. And this actually requires an integrated and coordinated approach, as Johannes mentioned. So with that, we're just going to move into a panel discussion, and I'm going to quickly introduce our panelists. We have with us today Professor S.K. Samdarshi, who is the professor in the Department of Energy Engineering and the coordinator for the Center of Excellence in Green and Energy Efficient Technology at the Central University of Jharkhand. His research covers areas such as energy policy, solar energy, and energy education, and his current work includes research on the power sector in Jharkhand. Welcome, Professor. Then we have Gaurav Bhattacharya, who is the Chief Operating Officer at Swaniphi Initiative. Swaniphi is a social enterprise that provides development solutions to improve the delivery of public services. Swaneti also leverages the research, data, and experience in public service delivery to create impact in the lives of communities. Gaurav works on expenditure analysis of flagship Government of India schemes, research partnerships with the state government, as well as impact evaluations. Prior to Swaneti, Gaurav worked at Niti Aayog in their monitoring and evaluation center. Welcome, Gaurav. And then we have Ashwini Ashok, who's the head of renewable energy at CED. He's worked for over 9 years in the power sector domain in India and has hands-on experience at government agencies as well as in the non-profit space. His interests lie in policy and regulation, energy access and efficiency, as well as economics of the renewable energy sector. He was instrumental in framing policies such as the Bihar Renewable Energy Policy in 2017 and the implementation of the Saubhagya scheme in Bihar. Welcome, Ashwini. So with that, I'm just going to go into the discussion. Gaurav, I'm going to start with you. We've been talking about clean energy transition using this phrase quite a lot over the last few years. And we just heard from Jana's presentation that Jharkhand is one of, from the report actually, that Jharkhand is one of the first states to sign this central government MOA. And part of that was towards deploying additional renewable energy capacity. But despite that, the growth of renewables has been fairly slow. And so I'm just to know from your work with Swaneti and your experience on the ground, how do you see the road to the clean energy transition in Jharkhand, and what's the way forward?
Thank you so much, Divya. It's wonderful to be a part of this panel. I have had the opportunity to speak to Professor Johannes and with Anand from Powerful All. So it's great to be here. In terms of the work that Swaneti is doing, I'll take a cue from what Professor said in his last slide. We're probably focusing more on the jobs part. So when we came into Jharkhand, we had this, kind of a assumption or a hypothesis in our mind that we'll be working towards shifting the employment base from the polluting sector to the non-polluting sector. As we know, that a lot of the larger workforce in Jharkhand works in the coal mines or the related areas, which has its own issues with it. It's not always, the best area to work in terms of the occupational safety and health hazards. At the same time, it is not something which is environmentally balanced. So Swaneti came into Jharkhand about a year and a half before to work specifically on transitioning the workforce from a non-polluting, from a polluting to a non-polluting sector. And to do this, we've been working with the Department of Agriculture and the Department of Labor. So we concentrated on 2-3 important demographies to look at the transition, because a larger, a green policy was not immediately something that we wanted to do. So we started working with these 2 departments where in the Department of Agriculture, we started promotion of clean tech in terms of a cohort of farmers. So we wanted to work with them on, solar powered cold storages and dryers. So we took a small cohort of farmers and started working with them, training them, looking at distribution at a subsidized price. So we worked with the government so that there could be a better policy so that the buyback can happen. And at the same time, the farmers don't have to spend enough money, whereas they can still get the product. And with the help of a lot of people who are in this field, who are doing the training, we then looked at training in some of the target districts. The advantage was that Swaneti has a very large presence in the districts in Jharkhand also with a DMFT program. So it's easier to target the farmers there and work with them. While we were doing this, another large base of people that we were working with were the workers, were the miners. So in the most mining affected areas, we did labor surveys. And also with the Department of Labor, we have successfully now created a green labor index. So today, if you see the Employment Exchange website, for the first time, it also has a place through which industries who are promoting livelihood options in terms of the non-polluting sector, in terms of solar installation panels, distribution of solar products, companies and vendors who do this can now register themselves in the Employment Exchange. And like most of us knew, and from our various state experience, we've also seen that these employment exchanges are highly dysfunctional because a lot of people or a lot of potential employers don't register themselves. But luckily, we've been able to do this successfully with the help of the government, with the support of the director of the labor department there. And today there are a lot of companies who are registering themselves on this labor exchange and hiring the manpower locally. So you're also promoting the manpower, you're also trying to hire them locally. At the same time, there is a diversification in terms of livelihood options. You don't only have to go back to working in the coal mines. So that's something that we have happened. I mean, personally, we feel that there's a lot of improvement in terms of impact. When before we came in, the departments were not even ready to speak on something like non-polluting sectors, because a larger part of the economy in Jharkhand or the revenue is dependent from coal, which it'll still be. I'm not saying it'll go away, but in terms of the transition, at least in the employment area, at least in terms of the livelihood options, there has been a change in the mindset of the officials. Luckily today we have the Department of Horticulture promoting use of clean tech among its farmers. So we conducted a very large TOT workshop with the KVK scientists, and today for the first time we'll probably have budgetary allocations towards clean tech. So this was something which was never there. There was never any standardized curriculum for training these farmers on clean tech, which is happening right now. And I think Jharkhand is the first state government where the employment exchange also has now a green labor kind of opportunity. So we worked with 48 to 50 companies who we have done stakeholder interaction with, and they all have shown great interest, and the government has shown great interest. So at the senior level, the government is extremely interested to manage the environmental equilibrium of the state. We have had some conversations at the CMO level also, and they are extremely interested. It's just that the pathway towards will take more time, will also involve much more number of departments to work together, because I think that's where the challenge is. The convergence is still not happening. So those are some of my kind of thoughts on this aspect.
Yeah, thanks for that, Gaurav. It's really good to know that the government is actually now open to speaking about the non-polluting sector, especially this transition towards a change in mindset and promoting clean technologies and clean jobs, along with budgetary allocation, because that's what's needed more so. Professor, I'm going to come to you now. If Jharkhand has to sort of make these concrete steps towards this clean energy transition, technology and innovation is going to play a pretty huge role. In your work, you've done a lot of research in this area, especially in the power sector in Jharkhand. So from your experience, can you speak a little bit more about the role of technology and innovation in Jharkhand and how that can accelerate the growth of renewable energy in the state?
Is it okay? Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Thank you so much, Divya, for this introduction and giving me this opportunity to take part in this discussion. Actually, as far as I'm concerned, or my department is concerned, Department of Energy Engineering, we are into, as you know, hardcore research. We do research in solar photovoltaics, solar thermal, solar photovoltaics. We work on solar cells, and in solar thermal, we are working on different characteristics of different kinds of systems. Our focus is on solar cookers, so that is one thing, and our contribution there is in developing performance parameter of solar cookers, which is now means recognized internationally also, and many people are now working on our proposals. This is one. Now we have now, because I heard all the panelists before this, and what I finally saw was that you people, most of them are working in the field. We are basically working in our labs, so that is the difference. So somehow I wanted to connect with whatever is happening in the field, and that is how I'm now here. And I should thank Johannes for helping me in doing all this whatever I'm doing. Now, the thing is that most of the things which I wanted to talk has been told here, but there are a few things which I would like to tell, and that is what kind of initiatives which Jharkhand has already taken in the direction of, let us say, just transition or energy transition, or in the area of renewables. Renewables, see, what I see, although Johannes showed that there is some potential of wind also. But what I see is that there are only three technologies which can make an impact. Solar is, of course, at the top. As you can see, it is around 18,000 megawatt is the potential, as Johannes rightly mentioned. And there is, as far as other technologies are concerned, it is bio, which is going to make some mark. And then the third one is micro or mini hydro, which will be. So these have potential, but solar is, of course, at the top. And why solar is at the top, let me add to whatever people say. I always promote that Jharkhand is one of the best states as far as solar is concerned. Why it is the best? See, Western states have very high solar insolation. That is correct. But then they have the problem of temperature, high temperature. They have the problem of dust also, which Jharkhand doesn't have. So overall, although capacity utilization factor is slightly less, but very recently I have seen that it has gone up. It was 18, 19 initially it was considered to be. Now it has gone up to around 20%. So now in all the calculations that that thing should come. Now that the potential of Jharkhand is more than what was earlier estimated as far as solar is concerned. So solar wise, it is very good. And the new thing which has happened recently is that the project which is going to be, which has been recently announced, that is 100 megawatt floating solar power plant on Getalsur Dam. And I was talking to the principal secretary regarding that, and what I saw is that they are highly interested in involving in all the aspects, involving universities and our students also. And as you know, we are basically educational institutions, so we are into training, and we are training our students in different fields. And one field in which we have now initiated, of course, I am getting help of Johannes and some other institutes also. SEED, we are having MOU with SEED as well, JVVNL as well. So we are now proposing to start a course which is in the advanced stages now, a course on energy management and energy policy and management. That will be a kind of diploma course, 1-year diploma course. I have already talked to director of IIM, Mr. Sailendra, Professor Sailendra Singh. So he has also agreed to that, but somehow because of COVID situation, we have not been able to go ahead. But then that is one thing which we would like to do as far as training is concerned in this area. Now, what will this training actually mean? See, from one calculation, if solar energy, let us say, if we are having around 2,500 megawatt of installation, in fact, yeah, what is it is around 2,500 megawatt. So high level or highly trained personnel which will be required will be around 250. That is on an average, that is what we have calculated. So around that much, and then 2,500 in total personnel which will be required. So we want to basically go ahead and train manpower in this area, which will be, and not only train manpower, in fact, we want to contribute through them in different kinds of innovations and entrepreneurship. So that is where our stress would be in this particular thing. And in fact, a kind of training program which is which has been proposed under Saksham scheme by JVVNL. We have already been told to prepare the training program for that, although they are already doing it with RECs and IIMs and PTI, etc. So we are now we have to propose for that once all these things are over. So my final concluding remark on this would be that whatever we are doing, our aim should finally be to make use of the vast resources which are there in Jharkhand, And also stress on R&D capability, stress on enhancing R&D capability, start training program, initiate some industry academia partnership, so that whatever R&D and whatever innovations we are doing, that finally goes to the right place. And of course, for this we'll be needing more of government funding. And of course, whatever we do locally, that will be more useful for local people, but it will also be useful at national or at global level. So this is what is my input for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. I like the fact that you were stressing on enhancing R&D along with training, so that
Right.
Innovation can spur the uptake of renewable energy and create this pathways for the clean energy transition in the state. Thank you for your comment. Ashwini, I'm going to come to you now. So in the last few years, we've seen quite a significant shift in the whole narrative around energy access, and now there's more of a focus on productive use and development. And deploying clean energy solutions is no longer just about clean energy. It's how that energy can accelerate and contribute to development, especially in rural and remote areas. So we're no longer thinking in silos, but how all of this is integrated. And you've worked a lot around the policy and regulation aspects of the clean energy, climate, and energy access. So from your experience and the work SEED has done in Jharkhand and DR and neighboring states, how can Jharkhand incorporate clean energy solutions into its development plan?
Thank you, Divya. First of all, I'd like to thank ISEP and Power for All for organizing this webinar and inviting SEED to speak among these esteemed speakers here. And I'll also like to apologize on behalf of Mr. Ramapati, who could not actually make up for this event because he was busy working with Jharkhand COVID response team and has a meeting for the same with the state government right now. So I really apologize for that. But yes, as you rightly said, SEED has been closely working on the aspects of policies, DRE, renewable energy for quite some time now, and has been closely associated with the state government of both Jharkhand and Bihar. And SEED is also a technical partner of JEREDA for last 4 years right now. As you all know that Jharkhand does not has that kind of renewable energy infusion in the state. And the infusion which is happening right now is also at a very slow pace. So it needs to be ramped up at multiple times, right? And Energy Department has been the sole, or we can say the major torchbearer of infusing renewable energy in the state, which is actually not the case, which in the ideal situation. So it is actually important to explore work and focus on works which can be converted into reality right now, and involve other departments as well. As it was pointed out by Professor Samdasi, that Jharkhand is going for 100 megawatt floating solar power plant at Gatalsur Dam, and it was firstly incepted by SEED and JEREDA, through which we actually we prepared a DPR for floating solar power plant for the Gatalsur Dam a couple of years back, and it is great to see actually see that happening right now. It has processed further, so it is good, and we need to work on those areas which, as was already been told by Mr. Vishnu as well, that which can be actually done in the state, which can be realized, and which can be brought back into the reality. So basically, for RE development plans, if you want to, there are 4 key aspects which we need to take into consideration. First is the convergence. Another is capacity building or skill development. Third is the just energy transition. And the fourth is the policy and its implementation. So coming back to the convergence point of view, if I say, as per our experience with the SNAs and the DISCOMs, Energy Department as a whole also. They have been playing the key role in implementing the RE projects as of now, right? Recently, as we were working on DRE to a considerable extent in Bihar, we launched 3 projects in Bihar, highlighting the role of DRE or the importance of DRE, which can play in the overall economy of Bihar, as well as departments such as agriculture and health. So we came, through our whole experience, we came to know that DRE has a considerable potential in the whole of Bihar, and similarly it must be having for Jharkhand, although we haven't taken that kind of exercise for the state, but I'm sure that Jharkhand would have a similar kind of experience as well. So we came to know that through DRE, 4,000 megawatt can be created in the state, which is really a large number. But this 4,000 megawatt cannot be created only through interventions from one department, but it needs interventions from all the departments. As you know that all the departments working anywhere in the country, there are multiple schemes running with them. There are multiple schemes and they have funds allocated with them. But the problem is that there is no one, or there is no one identifies the role renewable energy can actually play in their schemes. So there were many departments such as rural development, agriculture, PhD, health department, and there was so many departments others as well, which could actually contribute to 80 to 85% of the whole capacity being exhausted through implementation of DRE solutions. So the point is that what the state nodal agencies such as JARIDA can actually work is here, that they should work with these departments. They should be proactive in their approach and tell them that these are the RE interventions which you should apply for your programs, for your schemes, so that RE stake can be increased in the state, and also the schemes which they have actually come up with, and they can take a larger picture. Because if I talk about only one department such as agriculture or minor irrigation, so energy department or JARIDA comes out with solar pumping schemes. Micro irrigation department will come out with micro irrigation schemes. So, but if these two schemes are combined and been brought as a one, it could be a much useful and impactful scheme for any farmer. Similar other aspects for other schemes as well. So, so these are something which is important. And when we were discussing it with the Bihar government, the department also were pleasantly surprised that they can play such a good role through interventions and through RE interventions in their own schemes as well. And it was through this approach that the Panchayati Raj department came up with installation of 14 lakh solar street lights in the state, which is a huge project for the state as well. So this is something which needs to be done in Bihar as well, and in Jharkhand as well. Another, as Johannes also rightly pointed out, skill development and capacity building, it is no-brainer. But it is key to implement the development plans, because if we are targeting other departments or trying to work with other departments, it is necessary to actually capacitate the officials of the departments as well. Because this has been a problem for the state for long, because renewable energy first was being implemented by JARIDA, and now it's being implemented by JARIDA and the DISCOMs. So this has created a lot of confusion, as well as there has been some implementing issues as well, which actually hampered the pace of RE installation work going on in the state. So if we want to actually take it forward, it is very much required that the skill development of the officials is also being done, as well as if we're talking about the RE solutions, it is also required that the people or the green energy base skill force be developed as well. I'll just take a clue from my earlier report, which I had prepared for Bihar. The 4,000 megawatt capacity which DRE can actually produce in the state could deploy almost 1,70,000 workforce. So considering this, it is a massive employment opportunity for the state as well, especially in the times of COVID, where there is so many losses of jobs, reverse migration being taking place. So this is one solution which can actually help the state in coming out from this migration issues or bringing investment in the state. So this is something which the state should think forward, and Seed and Power for All has already taken up one initiative in the past, where we actually trained some localites of Semdega, so that as Samdasi sir was saying, to bring on entrepreneurs or local people who can actually work in the state as well. So we did some trainings on that, and we had a considerable good response. And we have also identified 10 more districts as well, where these capacity building activities can be taken. So probably with the help of Vishnuji and Samdasi sir, we can take this forward, and Power for All and others can also contribute as well. So we can take it forward and do massive capacity development building activities in other districts as well, because it is very much required that we reach each and every district, because it will take the whole theme forward. Just energy transition, as I was saying, Jharkhand is at crossroads of sustainable energy development, considering RE potential, new government in power, the recurrent demand, and expectations of reliable electricity on various socio-economic fronts. But there are also, from just energy transition point of view, it is very much required that from economic perspective or livelihood opportunities point of view, or for a growth, if we talk about, it is required that each department or each sector come up with energy transition initiatives. We are already working with agriculture and health, where a clean energy roadmap is being framed for both the departments. And as you know, Jharkhand is also a state where which has considerable closed coal mines as well in the state, which has led to degradation, desertification, and such kind of issues. We are also looking forward for that, where renewable energy can actually play a good role in actually developing those areas as well. Policy point of view, policy or implementation point of view, it is very much required. As you have seen that the state government has come up with the recent green energy cess of 15 paise per unit for conventional power plants, or those owing capacity CPP plants, or those using high tension or 33 kV lines. So so such kinds of initiatives should be taken by the government, because that would actually help in encourage the developers as well as the consumers to opt for clean energy solutions. And as Vishnuji said, that we should think globally and act locally. It is very much required for the state as well that policies should be framed in such a way that all the developers are being given a common platform level playing field where they can act and participate in the development of the state as well as the increase the RE infusion in the state. So concluding my remarks, I would like to say that JEREDA alone or Energy Department alone or SEED, ISEP or Power for alone cannot make the difference. It is essential that convergence between the departments, CSOs, implementers, developers happen so that these development goals can be achieved. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashwini. I think, as you rightly said, this energy transition is not going to be made possible just by the energy sector alone, but we need interventions from all sectors and all departments working together towards this development. I'm just going to go into a time of Q&A. Krishnaji, if you're still there with us, there was a question that was posted for you, which is how effective could renewable energy interventions be in development of livelihoods in the state? And given the situation with COVID and job losses, what do you think are the specific areas where RE intervention could create more jobs?
Thank you, Divya. Thank you for the person who's asking this question. This is very pertinent question that it is a very huge potential area. I would like to mention that I could not mention earlier. In Johar project, we have also mobile solar panel mounted on a rickshaw for the irrigation. So in this contest, there is a large scope for the entrepreneurs who can provide the alternative source of energy at the rural area. For the there are many centers which started for the collectivization, sorting, grading. There's a small rural service center. So entrepreneur can provide those services with the solar panel or biomass or anything which can help to run the small equipments. So the migrant laborer and this COVID period, if they can tie up with a good company, because what happening, there is a lots of instrument there with low quality. That is the issue in solar energy also. The low quality equipment, low quality panel, and that is not value for the money. And that is not in the long run not promoting. But I assured that there is a huge scope in rural area. For example, I would like to mention we are implementing another project with support from the Japan government funding, that is called JMD, Jharkhand Horticulture Intensification through micro drip irrigation. Means we are taking a farmer 25 acres, 25 decimal of land with a small 1 HP pump and promoting off-season vegetable. With that, we have promoted more than 7,500 such scheme implemented. But these pumps are running on electric basis, and the wire they are taking from their own house to the site is long wire, and sometimes wire are caught up, where is not using, and there is some power backup. So if solar based mobile panel can be used, so that those scheme can be run. We have a as I told, we have promoted 59,000 SHGs. There are village level organization around 17,000, and cluster level federation 800. So those houses, those offices need electricity. Presently they do not have. If you can mount a solar panel on those centers, processing center, we have now promoting a marketing brand Polas. There are many processing center now decentralized across block, across districts. So this providing alternative solar panel with inverter and the battery charging. Another area is battery charging. We may not provide the solar panel, but some entrepreneur may come up. They have a battery charging center, keeping 50, 60 batteries to charge on a particular center. And that people can come and take a battery, charge battery, give a chargeless battery. So there is a huge scope for applying, and we are here, we can promote the things. One thing, many partners come, they just put a proposal, ask for money. That is not possible in RLM. But I assured that I can connect them to our community. We can connect them with the contact meeting with our secretary, our CEO, our field staff in district block and in community. They need to take the equipment value for the money. If they can prove, then there will be hot cake for selling the community where there is huge demand. because we could give 8 lakh solar lamps. How can other thing may not be sell? Thank you very much. I think I could answer the question.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for that. We also have with us Harshit Balecha, who is one of the authors on the report, the ISEP report. One of the questions from the audience is what will accelerate the industrial adoption of renewable energy in Jharkhand? And I think part of the report, especially the framework two, talks about this, the industrial side of it. So Harshit, will you be able to just comment on that?
Yes, sure. Thank you, Divya. So this is really a very relevant question because the industrial adoption, because the renewable adoption in the industry is still quite low in Jharkhand as compared to its real potential, because Jharkhand is an industrial roughly 40% of the energy consumption for such business in Jharkhand. So the renewable adoption is quite low because policy and government sites are not that much targeted as of now, and most of the industrial consumers are still going for taking the rooftop installations, like even for the applications. But the industrial consumers are not actually implementing RE solutions in their system. For example, there is quite low systems industries over there, because in Jharkhand there are mostly the iron industry, industry, and these are the highly energy intensive industries, and it could be transformed better by adopting RE processing systems and RE driven. These kind of systems and incentives could be better adopted if the industrial gets incentives from the government, like in terms of tax appreciation or taxation, so that they can adopt such kind of systems in a so I think specifically for the industrial consumers and
Sorry, Harshit, I'm not able to hear you.
adoption and integration in the industrial sector.
I think Harshit, the connection is a bit weak. We're having some difficulty hearing from you. Maybe if you could type into the chat window any reactions, and Divya, if you can move on to the next question.
Sure.
We don't have a lot of time, so I'm trying to get through.
Sorry about that. So we have one more question, and I can leave this open to anyone in the panel who wants to answer. What is the role of solar-based DRE in livelihoods and in agriculture in terms of secondary job creation and income generation in Jharkhand? Someone want to take that?
So I can give a little bit, kind of a run through on this, because we're working with a lot of farmers. So, we did a survey with about 150 farmers in a specific district of Jharkhand called called Chhatra and Ramgarh. Now, these are the areas in Jharkhand which have a very high, they cultivate a lot of tomatoes, but the spillage is very high because of the fact that it is extremely perishable and they're not able to take it to the market. Post the introduction of the solar powered cold dryers, we found that there has been an amazing income in terms of the farmers' income, though we tested it only in terms of few farmers, because those were pre-selected by the department before, and the department was working with an FPO that works with these farmers. But there is a lot of the provision of DREs in terms of livelihood options for agriculture is great in Jharkhand, and the adoption is very fast. I mean, you'll be amazed to know that without the presence of KVK scientists itself, the farmers are able to adopt it. Maybe the numbers currently are a little low in terms of adoption, but the willingness is very high. And the same for mobile cold storages. So I think in terms of, and we were also working with MNRE for a little bit of period on on DRE and livelihood. They have a program called Areas, which is basically assisting various officers work together towards promotion of DRE and livelihood. And there also we found out that Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, these states have a very high potential for adoption of clean tech and DREs, primarily DREs in the agriculture division. Some of the solar powered photovoltaic cells or what do you say, that solar powered agriculture is also being done in the Dumka and Deoghar block of Jharkhand, which is, I think, powered by Celco. So there's a lot of work happening on this, and the adoptions are very high. And specifically in a state where, again, it is, some of the farmers, their main income is dependent on agriculture, and the growth of SMEs and MSMEs is not as high in Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh as you would see in other states. And agriculture still is the backbone. This is really helpful. And something very unique that we saw here is the willingness to adopt. If we have fairer financial and flexible financing options for them, I think that would be the best thing. I mean, the policy intervention probably is not a push towards adoption, but probably a push towards better financing options so that they can take that up, and it is also much more affordable.
Thanks, Gaurav. I'm going to take one last question before we close. What is the future scope of business in installation of rooftop solar in Jharkhand? This is more towards at the household level. Ashwini, would you like to take that?
I think as we will all agree that not much has been done in the field of solar rooftop in Bihar. As of now, 20-25 megawatts solar installation has been done in the state. But the highlighting point of this is that largely all the installation has been done on the government buildings. So the residential consumers still has the government has still not touched that mark with the residential consumers, owing to multiple issues, probably due to net metering and some JEREDA and DISCOMs. There are some interlinked departmental issues. Otherwise, the scope for solar rooftop is much higher in the state. However, the adoption regarding this has been considerably lower. But the state government, I suppose, has got 60 megawatts sanctioned under its head. The DISCOMs has got 60 megawatts sanctioned under solar rooftop program. So, which is something which the DISCOMs is very keenly taking it forward, and we hope that in the coming years to come, more and more installation will take place.
I think like rooftop water harvesting made compulsory for the housing society. Similarly, if state government issue notification that for the minimum square feet of building or minimum inhabitants, if the solar panel must be set up, that could influence the builders or the promoter to go for the rooftop solar setup. Also, that issue of connecting to grid and metering, charging need to be taken care, so that the rooftop solar panel for the private people, for the builders, can be promoted.
Thank you. So with that, we'll close this session. I'm just going to pass it on back to Johannes to just give us some closing remarks.
Excellent. Thank you, Divya, for excellent moderation. Thank you, everybody on the panel, for taking the time and sharing your insight. It's been a really deep and engaging discussion. I see a lot of agreement on some of the key issues here, including the importance of working together between government, entrepreneurs, and civil society, including coordination between different departments, the essential importance of jobs, livelihoods, and recovery from COVID-19 for a state like Jharkhand, and also the importance of innovation, industry, and technology moving forward. So I think these are very important themes, and so I think Jharkhand is really in a great position to move forward, thanks to all of you, because it has a good group of experts, practitioners, academicians who are all working in this area. And this, to me personally, I think is the key point here, is that even though Jharkhand does face a lot of challenges, that there's difficulties with economy, geography, legal issues, regulatory issues, the most important problem, I think, is already being solved, which is having a group of people who contribute to the debate, who do the hard work of figuring out how to get this right. And we've already heard from all the panelists that there is actually really a lot of work happening in Jharkhand today. And that makes me quite optimistic. I think when we reflect back to this time, all the difficulties with pandemic and everything, 10 years from now, when we have another session like this, I think we will be looking back to a decade of great growth and success in Jharkhand. So I'm very optimistic about Jharkhand's future, and I'm very glad that we had a chance to do this session today. I look forward to working with all of you. I look forward to meeting all the people in the audience, and again, I'd like to just thank everybody one more time. Most importantly, the panelists, the moderator, the authors of the report, and finally, I do need to recognize the Oak Foundation for funding our work here. It is really made all this possible. So thanks everybody, and I look forward to continuing the discussion with you later.
Thank you very much, Jones. It's a nice introduction, and let's keep up this type of discussion so that we can combinedly influence the government. Because if Sir Samar this is Sir, and we can go to his university and have a discussion with him regarding capacity building, training, entrepreneurship with other stakeholders. So I think we can keep on this type of online interaction regularly and draw support from each other. And this is a very important task for all of us. Thank you very much.
You are welcome, Mr. Vishnuji. Yeah, whenever you visit now, just now, nothing can be done. We know Ranchi is in a very bad condition as far as COVID is concerned. So, but surely after a month, I'm sure that this will all go and we'll be able to meet. Thank you, Johannes,
yes.
for, yeah.
Yes, sir, please.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.